Discover the amazing journey of the Odyssey, 10 surprising transformations that inspire today. Sarah's fingers trembled as she traced the spine of the old book she found tucked away in the library. The Odyssey. The title promised adventure, a chance to escape the suffocating routine that bound her. In quiet moments, she dreamed of a different life, one where she wouldn't just be the waitress at the diner, juggling orders and fostering the dreams of her lively daughter, Lily. The burden of her grandparents' expectations weighed on her heart, a sweet but heavy reminder of the life she hadn't built. She sank into the pages and felt a familiar yearning. Odysseus' journey mirrored her own struggle for something more, a better life for Lily, a life free from the snubs and dismissive remarks of her boss, Mark. Mark had once been a culinary prodigy, revered in the local food scene. Now, he belittled Sarah's contributions, brushing aside her suggestions like scraps from a table. The diner was a small world, everyone knew each other, and yet here she was, an invisible force amid a bustling community. That afternoon, the air in the diner was heavy with grease and unspoken dreams. As she served coffee to regulars, she caught Mark sneering at her when she shared a creative idea. He rolled his eyes, and a wave of humiliation crashed over her. Was this her fate, to be trapped in a cycle of denial and inadequacy? Each snub fueled her frustration. Before she could collect her thoughts, the weight of disappointment pushed her deeper into despair. A knot twisted in her stomach as she pictured herself standing before Mark, voicing her grievances. Would her voice hold any power? Would she allow fear to silence her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, amidst the swirl of uncertainty, there was an ember of defiance within her. Mr. Carter, the retired professor who often sat at a corner table with a book and a cup of coffee, saw something in her she struggled to recognize in herself. He would listen, offering encouragement and an open door to explore her passion for writing. With newfound clarity, she gathered her co-workers after hours and formed a late-night study group. They exchanged tales of their lives, their hopes, and the burdens they carried like heavy backpacks. For the first time in ages, Sarah felt a flicker of empowerment, but just as optimism began to weave its way through the fibers of her existence, fortune mocked her. Winning a local writing contest ignited her dreams, but Mark's jealousy turned that joy sour. He engineered a devious scheme to steal her moment in the spotlight, sabotaging her recognition and stealing away her hard-won prize. Anguish clawed at her insides, darkening her heart with despair. The moment she realized what he had done, an icy chill set into her bones. Torn between fighting for herself or retreating into defeat, Sarah paced the dimly lit diner, shadowed by uncertainty. A storm of emotions surged within her: anger, fear, defiance. She could not let Mark's actions define her, she needed to confront him. Yet, the thought of losing everything, the job that barely paid enough, the uncertain future she fought for, settled over her like a suffocating fog. In that moment, contemplating both fear and hope, Sarah caught sight of Lily watching from the doorway. Her daughter's eyes, wide with admiration, sparked a realization deep in Sarah's core. This was about more than her, it was about paving a path for future generations. But was she brave enough to tread the uncertain waters of confrontation? As she felt a rising tide of tension, the very air felt electric with potential. A reckoning loomed, and with it, the chance to reclaim her story, all hanging in precarious balance. The fluorescent lights buzzed above Sarah as she stood frozen, the weight of her decision sitting heavily on her shoulders. With Lily's expectant gaze upon her, the tiny diner felt both expansive and claustrophobic. This was the moment she had been waiting for, yet doubt gnawed at her resolve. Without consciously deciding, her feet propelled her toward the break room, where the faint odor of stale coffee hung in the air, an apt descriptor of her stagnant state. She clenched her fists, feeling the bites of loneliness and regret, thinking back to her late-night study group. It had been liberating to share her aspirations, each utterance crafted with passion. The stories had unveiled pieces of her that she had long hidden, like buried treasure waiting to be discovered. Mark was a different kind of darkness, embodying the voices of doubt that she had internalized over the years. Yet, as days turned into sleepless nights filled with writing and reflection, she'd begun to tilt the balance of her self-perception. Could she channel this burgeoning strength into a confrontation? Sarah. A familiar voice broke through her thoughts. It was Mr. Carter, looking at her intently from the doorframe. "You've been awfully quiet. I can sense that a storm is brewing inside you." Startled, she straightened her posture. "I'm just thinking." "Thinking or regretting?" He pressed gently, stepping closer. His words tightened in her chest. Did she really want to drift silently through life, an observer rather than an active participant? The budding writer who had claimed the spotlight through her words was still there, clinging to the belief that she deserved more. Clenching her jaw, she nodded. "I'm going to talk to him." The determination in her voice caught Mr. Carter off guard. "What do you hope to accomplish?" "Respect," she replied, the word resonating deeper than she expected. "I'm tired of being dismissed, of feeling like I don't belong. I want to offer ideas and be heard. Not just hidden behind a counter." As the adrenaline surged, Sarah planned her approach with meticulous care. She recalled her moments of clarity in the study group, the warmth of camaraderie that had spurred her to dream bigger. Each moment they shared showcased the strength found in vulnerability. Theirs was a sanctuary of collective encouragement. That evening, with the sun setting in fiery red hues outside the diner's window, she knew she couldn't let Mark's antics shatter her dreams. The diner emptying of its typical bustle, it felt like the world held its breath. As the clock ticked loudly onto the half-hour, she braced herself both mentally and physically. She turned toward the kitchen where Mark held court, a master of the culinary realm in a cracked universe. With each step toward the door, she held tight to her newfound confidence, steeling herself against the biting disapproval that had often cut her down. Sarah's heart thundered, but she was no longer the timid girl waiting for someone else's permission. She was ready to step out of the shadows and claim her place, but the moment she entered the kitchen, she found Mark standing there, arms crossed, a smirk etched on his face. "What do you want?" The taunt delivered a chill, but it flickered a wild fire beneath her resolve. "I need to talk to you about the contest." As she spoke, she felt an unexpected surge of power. But before she could press further, Mark's eyes narrowed, the atmosphere thickening with an unspoken challenge. Would he dismiss her yet again, or would this confrontation change the landscape of their twisted interactions? The stakes were set, and as their gaze locked, Sarah realized she stood at a precipice. Whatever came next would define her journey, not just as a waitress, but as a woman ready to reclaim her narrative. Mark's expression twisted into a mix of amusement and disdain. "The contest? Seriously? You think that it's going to matter?" He leaned against the stainless steel counter, which gleamed under the harsh fluorescence, casting his shadow like a looming threat. Undeterred, Sarah held her ground. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, but this time it was fueled not by embarrassment, but by a clarity she had never felt before. "I think it does. I want to contribute, not just take orders." His laughter was sharp, an immediate dismissal, but instead of crumbling, she leaned into the moment. "I don't expect you to understand," she continued, "but I know I have ideas worth sharing. And I'm ready to express them." Mark straightened, crossing his arms tighter across his chest. It was an intimidation tactic, one she recognized as a manipulation she no longer intended to succumb to. "Ideas don't mean much without experience, Sarah. You think you can just waltz in here and pretend to be someone you're not?" The question hung in the air like a drawn bowstring, aching with latent potential. Could she rise to his challenge? A cocktail of anger and resolve pulsed through her veins. "No, but I can't stay silent either. Every word I've written and shared has made me stronger. It's time you respect that." His silence burned with incredulity. For a split second, she saw a flicker of something behind his bravado, maybe recognition, or perhaps a hint of insecurity. But it faded as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a forced smirk. Respect is earned, not handed out like free samples. Then I'll earn it. Each word was a pounding declaration. She could feel her pulse quicken, thrumming like a drumbeat underscoring her determination. The idea of earning that respect ignited something radical within her, a willingness to redefine her narrative. Let me show you what I can bring to the team, she added, the weight of her words now buoyed by unwavering conviction. I'm entering the contest, and I want to incorporate one of the diner's signature dishes. I want your support. Mark's eyes narrowed, scanning her for any hint of hesitation. All he found was a fierce determination that caught him off guard. There was a daring edge to her confidence, a vulnerability transformed into strength. Oh, so you're going to cook? He scoffed, clearly underestimating her. The casual contempt hung thick in the air, but she refused to flinch. I'll learn, she shot back. You can teach me. Or is your ego too fragile to let someone else share the spotlight? The challenge hung palpably between them. Mark's confidence wavered for just a heartbeat before he laughed again, but this time, it lacked its previous edge. You're just a waitress, Sarah. You really think you can take on a kitchen like this? With your help, yes. I know I can become more than just a waitress. I'm ready to prove that, she stated firmly, her voice steady against the storm brewing in her chest. For a moment, silence reigned. Sarah's resolve solidified. She was standing at the edge of her transformation. Maybe Mark would dismiss her, maybe he'd laugh her out of the kitchen, but she stood taller in the face of rejection, unwavering in her commitment to herself. Fine, Mark said, a bemused smirk returning, though now it bore a hint of respect. Let us see what you can do. But don't come whining to me if you mess up. Deal. For the first time, the sense of victory wrapped around her like a warm shawl. In her own small way, she had begun to carve out a space where she wasn't limited by others' perceptions. As Sarah walked away from the counter, the adrenaline coursing through her veins reached an intoxicating high. She could feel the shifting dynamics within the kitchen, the anticipation of what was to come. She could become more than a waitress, she could become a creator, an innovator, a force to be reckoned with. The next step awaited her, a culinary challenge that seemed daunting yet exhilarating. With determination singing through her, she began to plot out not just the dish, but the bridge between her dreams and reality. But as she turned to face the way back to the front, thoughts of what Mark would truly teach her began to nag at the edges of her mind. Would he truly be the mentor she needed, or was this a calculated move destined to backfire? As uncertainty loomed in the shadows, the moment felt electric. The journey had only just begun. Would she emerge empowered or simply be another casualty of Mark's ambition? The kitchen was a cacophony of clattering pans and sizzling oil, a mechanical symphony that echoed Sarah's racing heart. As she stepped inside, the familiar sense enveloped her, mingling with a sense of electrifying possibility. Today marked the beginning of her transformation. It was time to dismantle the boundaries of her identity as just a waitress. Mark stood at the helm of the chaos, barking orders with an authority rooted in years of experience. She approached him carefully, aware that this was a delicate dance. I need to know what you want from me, she said, her voice controlled despite the whirlwind of emotions beneath that. He glanced sideways, surprise flickering in his eyes. You really think you can just step into my world? Not just step in, she corrected, but bring something new to it. The room was thick with tension, and words hung heavy like fresh dough, ready to rise. Fine. But stay out of my way until you know what you're doing, he shot back, the edge of his voice rasping against her resolve. As the morning passed, Sarah felt the pulsating rhythm of the kitchen. She absorbed it all, how to julienne vegetables, the intricate dance of sauces simmering into perfection, and the precision required to time every dish just right. Each lesson carved a deeper understanding into her, revealing skills she had never considered before. Mark's teaching style was harsh, punctuated by harsh critiques and minimal praise. There were moments when frustration bubbled beneath the surface, but each critique became fuel. Instead of sinking into defeat, she harnessed his words. "You need more seasoning," he scoffed, watching her sprinkle salt like it was dust. "You can't be afraid to assert yourself. Let the dish speak for you." That simple instruction shifted something in her. Sarah began to embrace flavors, experimenting boldly, guided by an intuitive sense of taste rather than just technical knowledge. She was no longer merely following recipes, she was creating within a structure, a delicate equilibrium of stability and improvisation. Still, doubts haunted her like shadows. Would this newfound knowledge withstand the trial of competition? Would Mark's skeptical mentorship blossom into something meaningful, or would he push her toward failure? A blend of enthusiasm and trepidation brewed inside, threatening to boil over. On the third day, as she plated her first dish for him to critique, her hands trembled with anticipation. "This is just the beginning. I'm trying to show you what I can do," she stated, fighting against the doubt swarming in her gut. Mark inspected the plate, his brows knitting together in a show of critical appraisal. "You've improved," he admitted, though his tone was clipped. "But it still lacks depth. It's missing your voice." Her heart sank momentarily at the implication that she was still muted, just a reflection of his expectations. But quickly, she rebounded. "Then let me find it. I'll make the next one unforgettable." Every failure became a stepping stone, a lesson that chipped away at her preconceived notions of her capabilities. With every burn and every misstep, she learned to confront her flaws instead of hiding them. Mark, for all his harshness, inadvertently taught her resilience. As days melted into one another, her self-belief expanded. With every hour spent in the kitchen, Sarah felt layers of her former self peel away, revealing someone who could innovate, take risks, and express herself through cuisine. Yet still, the weight of the upcoming contest loomed, a looming specter that whispered her insecurities. Knowing that the real truth lay beyond Mark's constant scrutiny, she wondered if unleashing her creative spirit would hold its ground against the brutal reality of competition. Just as her confidence began to bloom, Mark dropped the most unexpected bombshell: "You're entering this contest alone, Sarah. I can't be your safety net." A cold knot of anxiety slid into her stomach. He could be attempting to sabotage her, but deep down, she knew he was pushing her to truly discover herself. Taking a deep breath, Sarah squared her shoulders, affirming silently that she was ready. The moment of truth was upon her. Was she truly prepared to embrace the spotlight, to chase after not just the prize but the recognition of her potential? The kitchen hummed around her as she prepared to step into the unknown. And in that moment, she realized, this is where her journey truly began. Would she shatter her own expectations or falter at the precipice of opportunity? Sarah lingered at the edge of the kitchen, watching the frantic energy swirl around her. The sounds of chopping and sizzling filled the air, but the anticipation of what lay ahead drowned out the cacophony. Alone, she thought, the word echoing in her mind. Mark wasn't merely testing her skills, he was pushing her to harness her own courage. Every movement she executed felt less like a mere task and more like a statement of her growing identity. She focused on her breath, reminding herself that doubt only held power if she let it. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, as she began to gather ingredients for the day's practice. As she reached for a bright red bell pepper, its color reminiscent of her vibrant aspirations, she felt a pang of determination well up inside her. She had always followed the lead of others, but this was an opportunity to carve her own path. She remembered Mark's words, "Let the dish speak for you." With an eager heart, she began chopping the pepper with precision. In that moment, the rhythmic slicing felt empowering. Each cut represented her shedding layers of self-doubt. She was not just fulfilling orders but instilling personality into her dishes. The spice rack became her canvas as she explored flavors like an artist with a palette. She scooped up cumin, then added a touch of smoked paprika, ingredients that demanded confidence. The realization of her capabilities resonated inside her. The kitchen, once a place of chaos, transformed into a playground of creativity. She began to visualize the dish she would present in the contest, not just a meal, but a reflection of her journey, her trials, and triumphs. Days passed, and Sarah continued to push herself, staying late to hone her skills. She developed a unique style that was distinctly her own, merging flavors and textures in ways that excited her. Yet, whispers of doubt still lingered. Would she falter in the face of seasoned contenders? With every step forward, another fear crept in to take hold. In the midst of her frenetic preparations, she confronted a crucial decision, sharing her creations with her colleagues. The kitchen buzzed with competitive silence whenever she entered, their watchful eyes scrutinizing every move she made. Would Marquess' approval extend to her peers? Or would they challenge her, seeing her as a mere waitress, undeserving of entering their realms? It was the lunch rush that ignited her decision. The restaurant was full, diners eagerly awaiting their meals. Mark called out to her, urgency in his voice, "Get it together, Sarah. We need those appetizers now." The pressure surged through her, sparking an impulsive decision. "Hey, guys," she called out, steadying her voice, despite the tremors within. "I'm working on something new. Want to taste?" Silence fell momentarily, the kitchen stilling as everyone turned to face her. "Just a quick bite." Their expressions ranged from skepticism to mild curiosity. Eyebrows arched, but she faced them unwavering. As she plated the dish, she felt a rush of vulnerability. Exposing herself to their judgment was both terrifying and exhilarating. The first bite taken drew murmurs around her. The feedback was immediate and candid but not cruel. They offered tips that were surprisingly constructive. One pointed out a lack of acidity, while another suggested a fresh herb. Each critique cut through her initial fear, igniting the realization that their voices mattered, that the kitchen community could inspire growth rather than be a barrier. As she absorbed their insights, something shifted within her. She felt supported, even in a competitive environment. Gratitude blossomed, and with it came a fierce resolve to bring her best to the contest, an opportunity to embrace authenticity, free from the shackles of her past. But even as excitement filled her, she couldn't shake the pressure that lurked just beneath the surface. Marquess' looming skepticism, the judgment of her peers, and her own self-inflicted doubts. Would this encouragement sustain her in the face of the contest? Would the voices of those sharing her kitchen transform into whispers of sabotage under the fierce glare of competition? With each passing day, the aura of the contest felt closer, heavier, yet invigorating. Sarah knew all too well that they could claw at her confidence, but now she had allies and a fire within. She had found her voice, yet unanswered questions shadowed her resolve. Was she truly ready to claim her place among the elite? The clock was ticking, and as the preparations intensified, she sensed the tightrope she was walking on. One misstep could lead to disaster, or a leap of faith could elevate her beyond her wildest dreams. Beneath the overhead fluorescent lights, she felt energies converge, the coming storm of challenge and opportunity. Would she rise as a chef, or would she retreat, forever marked as just a waitress? Determined not to let fear define her, Sarah plunged headfirst into her culinary journey. As the contest approached, a singular thought ignited her spirit: she was ready to face whatever awaited her. But in this high-stakes game, a chilling whisper began to surface: would Marquess' true intentions reveal themselves once the spotlight was on her? The days leading up to the contest blurred into a whirlwind of activity and anxiety. Sarah had spent every waking hour in the kitchen, refining her dishes with a blend of fervor and trepidation. With each recipe she attempted, her confidence mingled with self-doubt. Was she simply imitating the seasoned chefs surrounding her, or was there something authentic emerging from within? In moments of solitude, she questioned every choice she made. What if she failed to impress? Would they see through her facade, one crafted from half-baked dreams and a few stolen moments of clarity? Mark often appeared at her side, glancing over her shoulder as she worked, his presence an invisible pressure that kept her focused but on edge. His critique was sharp and fair, yet she couldn't shake the sense that he was weighing her potential against his expectations. Would he support her journey, or would he revel in her mistakes when the stakes became real? One quiet evening, as flickering shadows danced around the kitchen, Sarah glanced at the clock. The contest was mere days away. She had a choice to make: dive deeper into her culinary vision or settle for something safe and predictable. The latter, she knew, was not her. With newfound determination, she gathered her knives, her notepad, and all the pride she had cobbled together, preparing not just for the task at hand, but for a moment she desperately wanted to seize. As time wore on, her culinary creations began to transform both in presentation and taste. They became an extension of herself, a fearless declaration of who she was and who she aspired to be. Each dish bore the marks of her journey, from bitter setbacks to sweet successes. She experimented with new pairings of ingredients, embedding her personality into plates that reflected not just her skill but her growth. The zucchini ribbons danced with a vibrant dressing she crafted, one that merged tangy and earthy, a fluid representation of her own evolution. Her colleagues began gravitating toward her with genuine interest. They eagerly requested tastings, their eyes lighting up with each bold flavor she dared to create. Constructive feedback flourished, and as she absorbed their commentary, her confidence bloomed further. It was a revelation she wasn't merely fighting for approval, she was cultivating an identity within a supportive community. Yet, alongside this burgeoning sense of belonging, an unsettling thought persisted: would their encouragement hold firm in the crucible of competition? The memory of her first tasting lingered, a visceral reminder of how vulnerability can be transformative. The idea of inviting everyone to witness her final dish terrified her, yet the thrill of being seen, truly seen, pushed her forward. On the eve of the contest, Sarah found herself in the kitchen alone, the air thick with the scent of roasted garlic. An overwhelming wave of emotion washed over her as she gazed at her workstation, the chaos a testament to her resolve. "This is your moment," she whispered under her breath, stifling the urge to withdraw into self-doubt. It was now or never. Would she embrace her own truth in the spotlight? Hesitation flickered in her chest while she envisioned the judging panel, the room filled with volatility as they critiqued her work. Would she be dismissed as an imposter or celebrated for the flavors that danced on her plates? The uncertainty clung stubbornly in the air, and each inhalation felt heavier with expectation. Just as she was about to settle on a safe, last-minute addition, an alternative thought pierced through the haze: she could risk it all. Instead of retreating, she would reveal her most audacious dish yet, one that encapsulated her culinary journey: the rawness, the imperfections, the triumphs, and failures all woven together. That decision ignited a fire within her. No longer were thoughts of inadequacy the driving force. She had uncovered something fundamental, a choice between playing small and celebrating the boldness that her cooking demanded. In embracing her vulnerability, she began to conquer it. Willing to present not just a meal but a narrative of her own. As dawn broke over the horizon, she felt a pulse of excitement coursing through her veins. The contest loomed ahead, filled with uncertainty and possibility. The world was waiting to see if she would soar or stumble. But just as she was ready to write the next chapter of her culinary tale, another thought crashed over her like a tidal wave: was she truly ready to face Marquette's judgment when everything was on the line? As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the kitchen window, Sarah felt her heart race, a thrilling mix of anticipation and dread. This was it, her moment of truth, the culmination of countless hours of reflection, experimentation, and self-discovery. The daunting weights of expectation pressed against her chest, a constant reminder of the stakes at play. She could almost hear the ticking clock, counting down the seconds until she would face not only the judging panel but Mark himself. With shaky hands, she resumed prepping for the day. She meticulously arranged her workspace, placing her ingredients with care. Each item felt significant, a symbol of her journey rather than mere components of a dish. She reveled in the sensations: the prick of garlic in her nostrils, the crispness of fresh herbs, the radiant colors of vegetables waiting to be transformed. But was this joy enough to mask her underlying anxiety? As she began to cook, her mind wandered to the conversations she had with Mark throughout their time together. They had begun as simple exchanges about techniques and flavors, but they gradually deepened into shared passions and aspirations. Yet, at the back of her mind, a shadow lingered: as his approval predicated on his vision of her potential, or on the unique identity she yearned to carve for herself? Time slipped by mercilessly, and as she plated her final dish, her inner critic loomed larger than ever. The delicate arrangement of the food with the startling pop of colors and textures held her narrative of resilience, but could she encapsulate that message successfully? Would Marquette's gaze pierce through to her raw vulnerability? Questions piled upon each other, but one question, one doubt, clawed at her more than the rest. Had she truly found her voice, or was she simply mimicking the successful chefs she idolized? With every bite, her vision felt at stake. It wasn't merely about taste. It was about crafting an experience, a journey through her fears and triumphs. Each spoonful needed to convey the passion she harbored, the lessons she learned along her tumultuous journey. It struck her then, more violently than the different flavors she so meticulously combined. Her dish was more than just food, it was an embodiment of a woman emerging from the shadows of insecurity and self-doubt. On the outskirts of the contest venue, she drew in a steadying breath. The grand stage awaited her presence, and as the anticipation mounted, so did the challenges. Embracing this opportunity meant confronting the possibility of failure and the fear of rejection. Alongside that fear was a fierce desire to reclaim her narrative, to showcase who she truly was without bowing to standards she had not set for herself. Sarah stepped inside, the atmosphere charged with the tension of competition. Her eyes settled on the judging panel. Each face was a mixture of curiosity and scrutiny. It was in that moment she sensed the gravity of what she had chosen to do. She would present a part of herself, stripped of formalities, raw and real. As she approached the judges with her dish, she caught a glimpse of Mark in the corner of her eye. There was an intensity etched upon his face, a reflection of his own expectations masked by a supportive veneer. Would he be there to catch her if she faltered, or would he be the exact voice she dreaded hearing, dismissing her efforts as insufficient? The moment froze as she hesitated, her resolve tightening like a noose. This time wasn't about merely seeking validation. It was about confronting the core of who she was, an act of courage deserving of its own applause. In the eye of her turmoil, her decision was made. It was no longer about proving herself to anyone else but about honoring her truth. With a steady breath, she placed her dish in front of the judges, ready for their verdict. Sarah steeled herself for their reaction, knowing whatever lay ahead would define her journey, testing not just her culinary skill but the very essence of her identity. And just like that, as the first forkful crossed the judges' lips, the greatest taste test of her life began. Would they embrace her narrative or reduce her to mere technique? Knowing this moment could either solidify or shatter everything she had built felt like being on the precipice of a cliff. The question loomed over her with a weighty intensity: would courage, finally, be enough to bridge the gap between who she was and who she wished to become? As the fork clinked against the plate, time stretched into a tedious eternity. Sarah watched the judges, their expressions shifting as flavors danced on their palates. The silence felt charged, each heartbeat a reminder of her vulnerability. She had poured herself into this dish, it was a manifestation of her journey, yet would they understand that depth? The first judge, a seasoned chef with a reputation for ruthlessness, swallowed slowly, his brow furrowing in concentration. Sarah's stomach churned. Was he considering the flavors or weighing her worth? The seconds piled on like the layers of her dish, each one amplifying her anxiety. She could feel every doubt bubbling to the surface. What if they didn't see her? What if she had miscalculated yet again? Mark's gaze remained locked on her, tension radiating from him like heat from a flame. This moment hinged not just on his opinion but on her need to break free from the shadows of her past. She searched his face for any sign of support, but all she saw was the pressure of expectations reflected back at her. Interesting use of spices, the judge finally remarked, his voice deliberate. I sense a story here. Was that praise? A rush of pride and uncertainty collided within her. This was more than just culinary evaluation, it felt like an invitation to articulate her own narrative, an opportunity to reclaim her story amidst the critique. Yet, she was paralyzed, unsure how to respond. As the second judge took a taste, Sarah's mind raced back to their earlier discussions about flavor profiles and balancing techniques. In collaboration, she had shown promise, yet here she stood, stripped of that safety net. At that moment, in the stark light of the judging table, her previous fears slid back in. Were her culinary skills enough to stand on their own? Or had she tied them too closely to Mark's influence and perception? Delightfully complex, the second judge said, an approving nod softening her apprehensions just a fraction. The pure joy of her culinary creation was hovering right beneath the surface, but insecurity still tightened its grip. She wanted to shout that this wasn't merely about taste, it was about her identity, her choices, and the fears she was beginning to wrestle with. The last judge hesitated, bringing a thoughtful finger to her chin. "You've included memories in this dish, haven't you?" It felt like a bolt to her core. Memories? Had she unwittingly infused her narrative into the flavors? Suddenly, it became imperative she needed to articulate that connection, to stand firmly in her truth. Mark's intentions, the judge's scrutiny, her previous role as a sideline player in her own life, all of it had coalesced into this moment. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about claiming what was undeniably hers. "Each element represents a part of me," she finally spoke, her voice steadying with conviction. "I wanted to create an experience rather than just a dish." The judges exchanged glances that oscillated between contemplation and approval, but a new fear gripped Sarah. Could she articulate the depth of that experience if they prompted further questions? Could she maintain the authenticity she needed to fully claim her own narrative? At that juncture, Sarah realized her journey didn't end here, it was only beginning. The potential implications of her words, the chance to define herself publicly, felt exhilarating yet terrifying. It was a precipice she stood upon, tilting on thoughts of success and potential failures. Whatever lay ahead after this taste test would be a direct consequence of how deeply she could root herself in her truth. Just then, the first judge leaned forward, capturing her attention with a pointed look. "Well, our final reflections will be pivotal for you, Sarah. You know what is at stake, don't you?" What lay ahead in their evaluation felt like a labyrinth, filled with echoes of her past experiences that would either affirm her new identity or threaten her resolve. Sarah's breath hitched as she stared into uncertain waters, ready to confront the crossroads that would define her future. Would she emerge victorious, or find herself grappling with the weight of others' perceptions again? The moment loomed large, teetering on the brink of a revelation. What truly awaited her from this confluence of flavors and fears? The first judge's smile betrayed the gravity of their deliberation. Sarah felt her heart race as their eyes shifted from her to each other. In that fleeting silence, a world of possibilities spun wildly in her mind. Had she done enough? The weight of anticipation turned into a tangible knot in her stomach. "Your dish is evocative," the judge continued, his tone almost tender. "But it also raises questions. Are you ready to face those questions? To unveil your truth?" The bluntness of his inquiry made her pulse quicken further. She forced herself to hold his gaze. "Of course," she replied, though the words felt heavy on her tongue. With each passing moment, every worry, and every insecure thought she had fought so long to contain began to swirl to the surface. Was she truly prepared to embrace her story in all its complexity, or would the fear of judgment push her back into silence? The second judge interjected, her voice sharp as a well-honed knife. "Your flavors are layered, but layered with what? You're holding back something key. Don't you think that's a disservice to the experience you want to create?" Each word cut deeper, more incisively than the last. Sarah realized then that this moment wasn't merely about her culinary expertise, but a profound test of her courage to confront her own narrative, the hidden parts of her journey she had long kept tucked away. She straightened her posture, steeling herself. "I guess I've always been scared that my experiences might be not good enough," Sarah admitted, the admission tasting foreign but liberating. "But I've learned that everything I've gone through, my failures, my triumphs, each can be woven into the flavors I create." "And yet," the first judge said with an air of challenge, "those flavors must be bold enough to stand alone. Are you as bold as your dish?" Taking a slow, deliberate breath, Sarah's mind flashed to moments of vulnerability, to the evening spent doubting herself, and to the joy she found in the kitchen. It dawned on her that she had spent too long defining herself through the lens of others, and it was now or never. "I can be," she asserted, though doubt still trickled into her resolve. "I'm learning to harness my voice, and I want that to be reflected in my culinary craft." The third judge leaned forward, intrigued. Ah, the true essence of a chef lies in that voice, the ability to articulate not just through taste but through storytelling. We are not just judging dishes, but the very essence of who you are. As the stakes intensified, Sarah felt exposed yet empowered. The challenge ahead was not just about winning, it was about daring to step fully into her identity. The missing piece was the confidence that her story, however fragile, had the potential to bolster her creations. The tension in the room thickened. There was no doubting that her words were powerful, but would they translate into the approval she sought? She felt the weight of their curiosity, the expectation that her culinary journey's next chapter could begin in this moment. Would she falter, or would she elevate her truth to new heights? Let us conclude then, shall we? The first judge stated decisively. Sarah, are you ready for what lies ahead? Because the very path of authenticity is fraught with both challenge and reward. As he spoke, her thoughts raced. Was she truly ready for that kind of vulnerability? For the fierce crucible of honest artistic expression that lay ahead? A sense of urgency drove her forward, it ignited a new spark of determination within. She grasped the edge of the table, feeling the cool would anchor her in reality. Yes, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm ready. But as she committed to this journey, a chilling realization set in. Embracing her truth might not just be about the dish, but about every choice she would make afterward. The judgment from the audience could shake her foundation anew or fortify it, depending on how she chose to respond. With that, the judges began to voice their evaluations, leaving Sarah poised on the brink of revelation and uncertainty. Would her newfound resolve withstand the trials ahead, or would she find herself grappling with the echoes of doubt once more? As the judges continued their evaluations, Sarah felt an unusual calm washing over her, grounding her in the moment. Their words, once sharp and intimidating, now bore the weight of opportunity. Each critique melded with the lessons she had learned during her tumultuous journey. They felt less like assessments and more like invitations to grow. This realization marked a significant turning point. Your experimentation shows promise, the first judge remarked, his tone softening. But it's the authenticity that will resonate with your audience. They want to taste your truth, not just your dish. At that moment, Sarah understood the metaphor was not just about the gastronomy on the plate, but the narrative interwoven through each ingredient and technique. Her experiences, the humiliation, the aspirations, the late-night discussions with her colleagues, and even her confrontations with Mark formed a rich tapestry she was ready to share with the world. She had spent so long hiding behind everyone else's expectations that the thought of owning her identity invigorated her. I've learned that to connect with the essence of the dish, I must first connect with myself, she responded, her voice firm and clear. Every challenge I have faced has flavored my culinary creations. They are parts of my journey, reflecting who I am. Sarah could feel the raw truth of her words resonating, and she was ready to demonstrate that connection through her culinary skills. With palpable confidence, she wasted no time in describing her dish as she presented it. This is not just food, this dish tells my story. It's a celebration of my history, and it embodies the evolution of my spirit. The fusion of spices represents my journey, a blend of cultural influences and personal struggles. I want every bite to reveal layers of resilience and change. The answer hung in the air like the aroma of her beautifully plated creation, and she noticed the shift in the judges' expressions. They were listening intently now, awed by her sincerity. With each passing moment, Sarah felt the grip of doubt slipping. She had carved out her niche, confronting each challenge to blossom into a chef who demanded respect not just within the kitchen, but in her own self-perception. Mark, standing off to the side, now had an air of reluctant admiration. That flicker of acknowledgement did not go unnoticed, it solidified her inner strength. As the judges finished their discussion, she joined them in the anticipation of feedback, her heart thumping with a rhythm of hope. Your dish is truly reflective of your growth, the second judge announced, a commendation resonating through the room. But this is only the beginning. Own your narrative, harness your voice, and you'll thrive. You've demonstrated through this dish that you have the potential to not only participate but to lead in your culinary journey. The validation felt like a warm embrace, a direct confirmation that her labor had not gone unnoticed. She smiled, knowing that she would carry these words with her long after the contest ended. Finally, the last judge leaned forward, an approving smile breaking through. "Do you understand the significance of what you have achieved?" "I do," she assured him, her voice steady. "I'm not just here to compete, I'm here to redefine what it means to be a culinary artist. I'm ready to be visible and to share my story boldly." As the judges deliberated, Sarah took a deep breath, acknowledging the transformative experience this contest had offered her. Would she leave feeling victorious? The criteria on which she defined victory had shifted into something deeper than just accolades. She had developed a sense of confidence and a newfound respect for her own worth. When they finally announced the winner, the moment felt surreal. Her heart raced as they shared their decisions, but no matter the outcome, she felt fulfilled. This contest would never merely be a competition to her. It had been about shedding the layers of an identity built on assumptions and discovering who she truly was. "Sarah," the first judge said, a smile spreading across his face, "you are the winner of this contest, but more importantly, there's a clear voice in your cooking that needs to be shared with the world." As cheers erupted around her, she felt liberated, basking in an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had reclaimed her narrative and stepped into her identity as a chef. The respect she had longed for had been earned through hard work and tenacity. The path ahead would still present challenges, but she had proven to herself and others that she was undeniably more than just a waitress. The culinary world awaited, and she would traverse it with her head held high, ready to craft dishes that told tales of her vigor and authenticity. In that moment of triumph, Sarah knew this was not merely the conclusion of a chapter, it was the opening of a new and exciting volume in her life. Now, dear viewers, this is the moment to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive, emotional stories that can inspire you to conquer your own narrative. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. And comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share the power of personal overcoming stories.